When I was a regular on a DFS YouTube livestream podcast up until last September, I created my record predictions for all 32 NFL teams and shared them on a previous episode. If you remember this, then you're in for a treat. I'll be reviewing all of my predictions and see how I did. Hi, Evan with Barely Fantasy here, and this is Regular Season Predictions Results. I had the Miami Dolphins leading the division at 12-5, believing it to be theirs to lose. I believed heavily in their offense and had questions about their defense. It turns out, both were underwhelming, resulting in going 8-9 and missing the playoffs. This Dolphins team got crushed by the Titans in Week 4. They lost to a bad Colts team in Week 6. They lost to a mediocre Cardinals team they should have beaten in Week 7. They even lost to the Jets in Week 18. How do you fail that hard? They didn't even lose 2 of the entire season. The team's front office defended Mike McDaniel, and they appear to be keeping him as their head coach. If I were Stephen Ross, then I would have just let McDaniel go to go find a better head coach. Now Tyreek Hill wants to leave this team as a result of all the dysfunction. Oh well, sucks to be you, Miami. The Buffalo Bills losing Stephon Diggs and replacing their entire secondary defenders made me believe they'd be fine, but nothing spectacular at 10-7. Lots of people throughout the internet were claiming they'd suck this year, and I pushed away those doubters. Even then, Sean McDermott's coaching staff proved my ass wrong too. They finished 13-4 and are currently my favorite to win the Super Bowl in February. They convinced me by beating the Chiefs in Week 11. I don't put much on the loss to the Patriots in Week 18, and I can live with the losses they took to the Ravens, Texans, and Rams, all of them having good offenses. The New York Jets with a healthy Aaron Rodgers and a terrific defense weren't enough to impress me as playoff contenders, believing they'd finish 9-8. I never liked Robert Saleh as a head coach, believing he'd be better off as a defensive coordinator. The Jets did what they do best, jet up to a 5-12 finish. The only respectable players on this team are Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, and Sauce Gardner. That's it. They fired Saleh, traded away Mike Williams, traded to get Devontae Adams, and the defense was noticeably worse after Saleh was let go. This team was so bad they lost to the Jaguars in Week 15, a bottom-of-the-barrel AFC team that finished 1 win less than them. What a disgrace of an organization. Woody Johnson will continue running this team into the ground for years to come, no matter how many head coaching candidates they interview. Nobody expected the New England Patriots to be a good team this season, myself included. I had them last in the AFC East at 4-13. With Gerard Mayo groomed into being the Belichick successor, I had faith in his leadership and accountability while the team rebuilds for the draft. Drake May did a good job with a trash offense, and the defense wasn't even the worst in the league. They finished exactly where I predicted. I knew the Baltimore Ravens would be at the top of this division. I couldn't see a league where they finished 2024 with less than 13 wins. They didn't quite get there, finishing 12-5, which is still damn good for having an atrocious defense. The offense, however, proved all of the Lamar Jackson haters wrong yet again. This offense is also better with Todd Monken rather than Greg Roman. Lamar had his best season yet in his NFL career, throwing for 4,172 yards, 41 touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions. He rushed for 915 yards on 139 attempts and scored 4 rushing touchdowns. He lost half of his 10 fumbles. He finished as the QB1 in fantasy football. Suck it, Lamar haters. He is a good quarterback. He can do more than run the football. Deal with it. Shitting the bed doesn't even begin to describe the Cincinnati Bengals this season. I had them at 11-6, believing they'd bounce back and be a big playoff contender in the AFC. Not necessarily Super Bowl caliber, but respectable. Instead, they didn't make the playoffs at 9-8 with a horrendous defense and a head coach in Zach Taylor who needs to go. At least the team got rid of defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, who needed to go a long time ago. Go get a real defense and then try again next year. Looking at the Steelers on paper, I didn't believe they'd do better than 9-8. Nobody knew what the offense would look like with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. This is a team that revolves around TJ Watt on defense, and I had a lot of questions about the offense. Even then, I can never count out Mike Tomlin for leading this team to success. They exceeded my expectations by 1 win at 10-7. Go figure, George Pickens is another wide receiver diva with a bad attitude, bad route running, and effort problems. Good luck, Yinzers, you're gonna need it. I expected the Cleveland Browns to be a bad 8-9 team, winning a couple more games than I wanted them to win. For no other reason besides my personal hatred of this team. Last season, Joe Flacco saved their asses in the final 5 games. This year, Flacco left to become an Indianapolis Colt. The very weird guy in Jameis Winston, with similar past scandals to Deshaun Watson, had a nice little comeback in Cleveland that amounted to jack shit in the standings, finishing 3-14. Genuinely, I love the passion of real Cleveland Browns fans. To go hard for this team that hasn't won their division in 35 years says a lot of good things about your fandom. The Haslams don't even share your passion. That being said, your team got exactly what it deserved. This is why you don't hire a baseball sabermetrics guy to run your football team. Next time, don't blow up your future on a piece of shit human being at quarterback who played worse than most of the backups in this league until he ended up tearing his Achilles tendon anyway. Recently, Watson had a setback in his recovery that also puts his 2025 season in jeopardy. With the number 2 pick in the draft, the Browns might have to draft a quarterback this year. Ha ha, fuck you, Deshaun Watson. You deserved everything you got, you piece of shit. I'll end this segment on a high note by extending real Browns fans one olive branch. At least you beat the Ravens and Steelers. That was funny. As far as I was concerned, this was the Houston Texans' division to lose. The Stroud to Dell connection was so much fun to watch last year. The team finished 1 win less than I expected at 10-7. This year we witnessed Dell's career in jeopardy with major tears in his knee from friendly fire. The team lost Stephon Diggs to an ACL tear as well. Stroud had his sophomore slump. Bobby Slowick Jr. was exposed as an overrated offensive coordinator. At least Nico Collins is giving the team their money's worth. Joe Mixon was mighty impressive in the run game too, showing no signs of slowing down. Do better next year, Texans. Oh my god. How do you suck this badly, Jacksonville? Seriously, I had you at 9-8 this year behind the Texans. On paper, I had hope for your team. Instead, you go 4-13 and then finally let Doug Peterson go, but you kept Trent Baalke as your GM. Make that make sense, Shahid Khan. Travis Etienne got worse and hurt in multiple places. You got T-Law hurt. You got Evan Ingram hurt. And on the bright side, Brian Thomas is looking like the centerpiece to your offense. Also, stop trying to make London happen, Shahid Khan. It's not going to happen. You're never permanently leaving the United States with this team. Now get the hell out of my sight, you pitiful organization. You make the Jets look good. The Colts suck. That's no secret. Even with the return of Anthony Richardson, I had them at 7-10 to take 3rd place in the division. I have to confess, they did surprise me, finishing 1 win better than I expected. They beat some teams that are clearly superior to them on paper, such as my Bears, the Steelers, the Dolphins, and even the Jets. Pat McAfee is 100% correct about this organization. Nobody cares about quality here, resulting in players being late for team meetings and not being held accountable for that. Nobody cares about winning here, despite the talent they have on offense and defense. This is why Jim Irsay shouldn't be allowed to own an NFL team. Fuck off, Jim. Next. Having shed Mike Vrabel as the head coach and Derrick Henry as the starting running back, I knew the defensive additions the Titans did late this past summer would not matter. I stuck by my prediction of 3-14, and that's exactly where they finished this season. I was right not to believe in the Mayo Man, Surrender Cobra Will Levis as their future at quarterback. He is absolutely awful. Mason Rudolph should not be outplaying him. Well, Titans, nice knowing you. Have fun at the bottom of the AFC for years to come. Serves you right for trading away A.J. Brown. There was never a world in which I could see the Kansas City Chiefs finishing less than 1st in the division. I had them at 13-4, and they exceeded my expectations again at 15-2, losing only to the Bills and Broncos. I was a little worried about them losing L'Jarius Sneed, but the defense still showed why they're elite. That being said, I'm not even impressed with this offense this year. Matt Nagy was their offensive coordinator, and he ran some of the most bland vanilla plays with Andy Reid, making Patrick Mahomes into an expensive game manager. Such a waste of arm talent. We'll see how they do against the Bills in the postseason. When the Broncos hired Sean Payton as their head coach, a lot of people didn't believe in the team. I saw some power rankings in August having the Broncos in the bottom 5 of the league. I figured they'd go 8-9 while trying to figure out their new identity with Bo Nix throwing the football, not having a good receiving core, and bad running backs. Go figure, they went 10-7, blowing out the Chiefs in Week 18 and earning themselves a playoff spot. I was wrong for doubting Sean Payton. A lot of people didn't think he'd do well without Drew Brees. The doubters can now shut the fuck up. The Las Vegas Raiders overachieved last season. This year, I expected them to come back down to earth and show the league why they're not capable of finishing close to 500 in the standings. I predicted them to go 5-12, and they went 4-13 instead. Even with Brock Bowers and Max Crosby as their studs, there are no other players that are good long-term value. The team finally had enough of Devontae Adams and traded him to the Jets. Antonio Pierce is a fraud of a head coach. This team sucks. Next. The Los Angeles Chargers don't deserve the elite head coach they have in Jim Harbaugh because fuck the Spanos family. This team belongs in San Diego and I will always stand by that. Anyway, I can't believe Harbaugh was only coaching the Michigan Wolverines for years. The 49ers shit all over this guy in the early 2010s too. Jim Harbaugh proved my ass wrong with my 4-13 prediction by taking a bad Chargers team from last year and turning them into an 11-6 playoff contender. They didn't even need Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, or Austin Eckler to do it. The defense coordinated by Jesse Minter was terrific against every position except tight ends. With Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator, the run game was good with J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and even Hassan Haskins. They spent a first-round pick on Joe Alt as their new left tackle and got clowned on by the social media idiots who know nothing about the trenches. I was worried in the preseason that Justin Herbert would get killed by his offensive line. Even though Herbert took 40 sacks, a career high, Alt was still a guy they needed protecting his blind side. The Chargers spent a second-round pick on Ladd McConkey, and he was immediately Justin Herbert's favorite target. Kudos to you, Chargers. Best of luck in the playoffs. There was no reason I saw the Philadelphia Eagles as anything less than first place in this division. I had them at 14-3, and that's exactly where they finished. Nick Sirianni sucks as a head coach, but he has the talent to succeed. Adding Saquon Barkley as a free agent was a total game changer for Jalen Hurts. I think we're going to see an Eagles vs. Lions NFC Championship this year. I don't have any other notes on this team. Keep up the good work. When I had the Dallas Cowboys projected to go 10-7, I didn't think about them having Mike Zimmer as their defensive coordinator. They did exactly the opposite of my projection, finishing 7-10. In my opinion, there were no good reasons to lose to teams like the Saints and Falcons, who didn't have the defenses to stop the Cowboys' good offense. Nobody could have predicted Dak Prescott getting hurt, as well as CeeDee Lamb playing through an AC joint sprain. The team got exactly what they deserved, led by a terrible head coach in Mike McCarthy. This team bores me, so I'm moving on. Here we go, on to the next team. For Jaden Daniels' rookie year, I thought he was going to work with a bad rebuilding Commanders team. I couldn't see them doing better than 4-13 with Dan Quinn as their head coach and Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. I thought we were in for another Falcons-like team when Quinn was their head coach. I was dead wrong. This Commanders team has excitement behind it. Players actually want to go play for them. The defense needs improvement, but that's a good problem to have as a 12-5 contender in the NFC. In case you're wondering, yes, I am still salty about my Bears losing to them on a Hail Mary, but I was at least glad my team kept up with the Commanders on the scoreboard. I wish you all the best in the playoffs, Commanders. Over the summer, I pegged the New York Giants as the worst team in the NFL. With Brian Burns as their best player on defense and no more Saquon to put the team on his back, I didn't see a world in which they won more than 2 games. Well, they exceeded my expectations with 3 wins. They tied with the Browns and Titans for the worst record in the league. The Giants beat the Colts in Week 17, which I did not expect to happen. Oh, whoop-de-fucking-do, Giants. You scored 45 on a bad Colts team. Nobody's impressed. Just get the fuck out of my sight. As a fan of a rival NFC North team, I first started to worry about the Detroit Lions when they drafted Aiden Hutchinson in 2022. That was the perfect number 2 overall pick that would be the start of a dynasty for them. I saw no world in which the Lions would lose the NFC North. I had them as a 12-5 team because I don't trust their secondary, as well as Dan Campbell's hard-headed, risky coaching style. Instead, they went 15-2, only losing to the Buccaneers and Bills. Their offense is undoubtedly phenomenal. This postseason, they need to prove they're more than people say they are. I was dreading this segment of the video, having to talk about my favorite NFL team. When I predicted the Bears to go 11-6 this year, I believed in the talent prevailing. Drafting Caleb, drafting Odunze, trading for Keenan, having a solid defense, I thought we were on our way to having a good season. After all, we were capable of a 10-7 season last year with Justin Fields as our quarterback, had it not been for 3 blown leads. I had a lot of curiosity about Matt Eberflus this year. Can he coach this team better? We, the fans, got our answer this year. The man is a fucking clown who had no business being an NFL coach in any role. He ruined the season for this team. The Bears players were coaching themselves out there, while losing to teams they should have beaten, such as the Colts, Commanders, Cardinals, Patriots, Packers, Vikings, Lions, 49ers, and Seahawks. I'll be making a separate video on this team later. Alright, I got through this segment. Time to move on to the next team before I start crying. Even as a huge hater of the Packers, I knew they'd have a fine season. I projected them to go 10-7, and they went 11-6 instead. I was almost correct if they hadn't blocked my Bears field goal in our first matchup, assuming that would have gone through the uprights. Jordan Love is an overpaid, mediocre quarterback, and the defense is still not impressive. To their credit, their run defense did get a bit better, but their secondary is overrated like always. I don't want to hear about Jair Alexander being hurt. DJ Moore was burning him when he was healthy anyway. I was just glad my Bears beat them in Week 18. At Green Bay, have it your way. You lose! This Packers team was good enough to snatch a wild card spot, and I don't see them beating the Eagles. Ugh, next. Who the hell could have seen the Vikings having this elite of a season? Even though they got trounced by the Lions in Week 18, let's give credit where credit is due. I don't even like the fucking Vikings, and I'm saying this. They overcame a lot of adversity this summer. Their new franchise quarterback first-round pick J.J. McCarthy tore his ACL. Their rookie fourth-round pick, Kyrie Jackson, died. They lost Danielle Hunter to the Texans, and likewise acquired Jonathan Greenard from the Texans in free agency. Kevin O'Connell took this team and made them a 14-3 powerhouse when I expected them to go 7-10 after everything that happened to them. They have an absolute gem of a defensive coordinator in Brian Flores, helping make lemonade out of lemons with that defense. Their defense has some respectable players, but they're not good enough as a unit. They sucked at defending the pass. Best of luck in the playoffs, Vikings. You're going to need it against Sean McVay's squad. With Baker Mayfield baking up some sweet passes, the Buccaneers exceeded my expectations this year, going 10-7 when I had them at 9-8. I didn't expect their defense to be this fucking terrible, but at least they won some big games against the Commanders, Lions, Eagles, and Chargers. The rest of their wins were unimpressive victories over trash teams, which included needing overtime to beat the Panthers in Week 13. I have no faith in their postseason. Just hurry up and lose to the Commanders in the wild card already. I had more faith in the Atlanta Falcons this season, projecting them to go 9-8 with no more Arthur Smith fucking up the offense. Instead, they go 8-9, losing in overtime to the Carolina Panthers in Week 18. Their defense gave up 44 points to an underdeveloped offense in Carolina, struggling to find its identity and without Chuba Hubbard. The defense gave up 66 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown to Miles Sanders. What a joke of an organization. Next. With Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, and Rashid Shaheed, I expected the New Orleans Saints to go 6-11 this year. This is no longer an impressive team with a defense that isn't good anymore. It's not like Dennis Allen was going to lead this team to the playoffs anyway, even if he didn't get fired. Despite the injuries to all four of their star offensive players, they ended up finishing 5-12, tied with the Carolina Panthers. They ended their season on a 4-game losing streak. At least Saints fans can't blame bad refereeing anymore for their losses, because their team is just plain shit. Last year, the Carolina Panthers were the worst team in the league due for a bounce-back season. For whatever that's worth, under David Tepper sucking at owning this team. I had them projected at 4-13 this season, and they ended up going 5-12 instead. I wasn't expecting them to beat the Falcons in overtime in Week 18. Nicely done, Panthers. Now build on this success, why don't you? Oh, San Francisco 49ers. Where do I even begin with you? I had you projected to be a 12-5 team, and you ended up going 6-11. On Twitter, I had you as my early pick for the Super Bowl this year. To be fair to myself, there was no way to predict the colossal meltdown you'd have. Christian McCaffrey was only healthy enough to play 3.25 games. The offense clearly needed him in order to succeed, and they struggled mighty hard without him. Look, I love Kyle Shanahan as an offensive genius, but he's not a successful head coach. Maybe he'll prove me wrong someday and be known similar to how Marty Schottenheimer was. But until then, go back to being an offensive coordinator. You're not good enough to be a head coach. If you told me the Los Angeles Rams were going to win the NFC West this year, then I would have thought you were crazy to put them over the 49ers. Yet here we are. They clinched the division even with a record as good as the Seahawks. They didn't even get full seasons out of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Losing Aaron Donald sucks, but there's no way around that. The Rams are my pick to be a potential upset win and go back to the Super Bowl. I refuse to doubt Sean McVay. That being said, I could see this team beating the Vikings on January 13th. I figured the Seattle Seahawks without Pete Carroll would become a mediocre team. They finished 10-7 this season as the best mediocre team in the league. I love me some Jackson Smith and Jigba, but the offensive line makes the Bears line look good. Geno Smith is also going to have to concede to Father Time sooner or later, leaving either Sam Howell or the Seahawks drafting a new quarterback. Hopefully the team does the latter. I'm already sick of talking about this boring-ass team. Next. The Arizona Cardinals with and without Cliff Kingsbury never impressed me. Not even a naturally gifted athlete like Kyler Murray does even today. When the news came out about the homework clause in his original contract extension, it was funny seeing how many football fans did mental gymnastics with Kyler, acting like it was all untrue. Guess what, fuckers? When your team has to tell you to do your job by watching game film, then you've got a problem. Maybe that's why your star quarterback has underperformed for 3 straight seasons. That tells me everything I need to know about the man's work ethic, and that's why the Cardinals went 8-9 exactly as I predicted. I will give this team credit for getting big wins against superior teams in talent such as the Rams, Chargers, Dolphins, and Bears. Marvin Harrison Jr. will hopefully play better next season, and Trey McBride will be a top target for years to come. However, none of this will matter when you're losing to teams like the Panthers in overtime in Week 16, giving up 36 points to them. Matthew Berry was right to hate the Arizona Cardinals. This team fucking sucks. That's going to do it for my review of my own regular season predictions. Please subscribe to the channel for more fantasy football content. Keep calm and play on, my friends.